So now that we've seen the functions of language, can we see some examples of each?
Of course. Let's just recap real quick that we had 6 different functions of language connected to the 6 elements of communication proposed by Roman Jakobson in the 60s. And just one more recap, the functions come from the elements. Each of these 6 factors determines a different function of language. So now that we're going to see examples, let's try to figure out which element is being emphasized in each example. Because if we figure out which element is being emphasized, we'll figure out the function. Okay? So let's see the first example. Can I ask you to read it?
Wow, I got the goosebumps.
Okay, so where do you think the emphasis is here?
Well, it's talking about I, so I would say the sender.
And we also know that the sender is expressing an emotion here. So whenever we have an emphasis on the sender, we call it the emotive function of language. In this other example, you are the bomb, we have a different emphasis here. What do you think, Steph?
I would say it's on the receiver because the subject is you.
And besides that, this is a praise. Whenever you're praising someone, the emphasis is not on us. The emphasis is on the person being praised. And when the receiver is emphasized, we have what is called the conative function of language. Another example. Can you read, please?
Simple it's not, I'm afraid you will find, for a mind maker upper to make up his mind.
This is a classic sentence by Dr. Seuss from the book All the Places You Go. And here we have a lot of work put in one of these elements. Which element do you think?
Probably the message.
And how do we know there is a lot of work on the message here?
Because it rhymes?
It rhymes. Also, there is a specific meter. Would you agree if I said that there is a specific rhythm here?
Yeah.
So whenever we have this work on rhythms and rhymes, we have a focus on the message and what is called the poetic function of language. It doesn't apply only to poetry, as we'll see later in other poetic examples.
Okay.
As opposed to poetry, we have a simpler example here.
Jimi Hendrix played at Woodstock in 1969.
All right, so in here, the focus is not necessarily on the message, it's on whatever is being referred, right? I'm just affirming something. What function of language or which element do you think is being emphasized when we're just affirming something?
Maybe the context?
Exactly. And that's what is called the referential function of language. We can see that every day in newspapers and headlines. The main point is just to refer to something, to an event.
Got it.
All right. Let's read this dialogue. You do the first character, you do the second.
Hey, what's up?
Hi, how are you? Now let me ask you a question. Did I really answer your question?
No.
So, but were you expecting an answer from me besides the answer I gave?
No, it was just an informal greeting.
Exactly. When we just have an informal greeting, the point is what we call in this theory just to test the channel. We're just testing to make sure we are communicating even.
Okay.
Right? And whenever we have a focus on the channel, we have what is called the phatic function of language, phatic with a PH. Last but not least, we have a definition here. Would you read for us, please?
Meta is a Greek root that means beyond.
Right, so this is a definition. So in a definition, I'm using language or I'm using words to define other words, correct?
Correct.
So whenever you use a language to talk about the same language, or for example, whenever you use a film to talk about a film, or a play inside of a play, or a painting inside of a painting, we have what is called the metalingual function of language. And this meta means beyond, a language beyond itself. It's kind of creating a knot. And that's perhaps one of the most interesting functions of language, as we will see later in other more complex examples.
Got it. Thank you.